Hey everybody, Nick here, and I got a review for you this morning of a very interesting knife, and that's your Lionsteel T.R.E. Stands for 3 Rapid Exchange. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my buddy Jim for sending this off to me to review. I appreciate that very much, and I never would have gotten to play with one otherwise, so that's pretty excellent. Lionsteel is a company, so here's a size comparison, that's really well known for doing larger integral kinds of folders where the handle is one piece sculpted around the blade, which is really cool. But this is another one of their designs. It's a smaller knife, so around the same size as your Delica, carries a little bit smaller actually. And it's a very lightweight knife, but it has one very specific set of features which is kind of interesting, and that's the T.R.E. part, the 3 Rapid Exchange. So that means that your opening mechanisms can actually be switched out. So for instance, using the little tools that they include with the knife, you can remove your thumb stud here. Just pop out this Allen key and pop out the screw, and suddenly there's no thumb stud. And you can do the same thing to the flipper here, which is good if you live in an area or you're moving into an area for the moment that doesn't allow flipper knives. You can remove that. And you can actually remove both the thumb stud and the flipper and have yourself a knife that you can only open two-handed, which is meaningful in some jurisdictions. It comes with this nice little wooden box here, which actually includes little spots for the flipper and the thumb stud to live when they're not on the knife, which is a nice, considerate thing. And, you know, has a little cutout for the knife, although it's really hard to get the knife in and out of there. You gotta do a little bit of whacking. But anyways, yeah, so that's the T.R.E., and that's its shtick. It's this rapid exchange thing. There's a lot to like on this knife, and there's some things not to like. So let's just go on into the good, the bad, and the ugly, as always. So the good things. I already mentioned that I like the wood block. I think that's a good idea, and it comes with a little sleeve that goes on top of it to kind of seal it up. But, you know, it's a cute little thing, and it's a more productive way of having a knife box than just a little piece of cardboard you're going to throw away. The knife is small, and I appreciate that. I tend to like smaller knives, and this goes right along with that. This is in a very nice size range that it's legal in pretty much everywhere, and particularly with this set of features, which is good. This knife is really, really lightweight. It feels to be about the same weight as the Delica, which is impressive because this is an all-metal construction. This is titanium on both sides, and then M390 steel. Speaking of which, M390 steel, I love. M390 is just great. Let's see. Yeah, you can see it on there. It's just a spectacular steel, along with its chemical twin C20CV and CTS204P. Just great, great steel. No complaints at all. That's about as high-end as you get on steel these days, which is a beautiful thing. It's running on bearings, and they're caged bearings, although this looks like an IKBS logo. It is not. They are caged and very easy to maintain. I took this guy apart and cleaned it up and put some nano oil in there, and that made it run a lot better. But that's nice. I do like the blade shape, the fact that it's kind of almost a harpoon shape with this back swedge here, but it's not actually for functional reasons, so, you know, it's a classy little blade shape, and the overall design of it is actually very pretty. I do like the amount of contouring they've done here. There's an over travel stop. Wow, that's a hard word to say. There's an over travel stop here, which, again, isn't necessarily needed, but always nice. And overall, the titanium work on this is just great. I mean, look at this, the body of this knife. Every inch of this titanium has been milled out in a very attractive way, and the surface is mostly match, and everything's just very, very nicely done. Even the clip is a milled titanium chunk. And so that just makes this knife very, very pretty and very nice feeling in the hand. And given that it's all titanium, it's got that nice warm titanium feeling, which is just a beautiful thing. So those are really the good things on it. It's small, it's really, really lightweight. I mean, the inside of the titanium here is sculpted out so to be more lightweight. I mean, they've really tried hard on that. It's M390 on bearings, and the titanium work is just stellar. I mean, the sculpting is just great. And I mean, look, even the pivot screw is nicely detailed, and the reverse side is, oh man. So I'm really, really impressed with the construction of this knife on the whole. A couple of bad things, though, as always. First off, it's got this backspacer, which is a really, really effective lint trap. If you can see there, the backspacer is flow-through, and I mean, you can wash it out, but I kind of just wish they had done this solid. The other thing is that this backspacer makes this one of very few knives that you cannot set on its back at all, because the backspacer is actually rounded. I'll see if I can show you that. Which is not a big deal, but it's just weird, because there's really only one way you can securely set this knife down, and that's on this side, which is the presentation side. Which, you know, okay, little weird little nitpick thing. One interesting thing about this knife is that it does actually have a stainless steel insert there on your lock bar. I'm hoping you can see that. But there was still lock stick on it, which is really entertaining. I was able to knock it down with some antioxidant compound, as I mentioned in one of those quick tips. But that was impressive. They can have a lock insert and a little bit of lock stick, which is funny. This knife is really hard to grip, and particularly when you're opening without pressing down on the lock bar, because if you press down on the clip, you're pressing down on the lock bar, and if you just try and hold it naturally, you're pressing down on the lock bar. I mean, my thumb, and I got small hands here, but it's very hard to not touch anything touching the lock bar when you're trying to use your thumb stud. And we'll come back to that later, because that's actually a surprisingly big deal. The clip on this, although it's very, very pretty, I'm not a big fan of for two reasons. First off, it's very narrow, so the amount of contact with your pants is it's a sharp point there. And so I suspect that this will cause a lot more wear on a pair of pants than an equivalent clip that's a little bit wider. It also presses down on the lock bar, like I said, and it's very, very thin if you look at this. I mean, it's a chunk of titanium, so it should be okay, but I just don't trust that this is going to last a long time, this particular clip. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But the clip in that way left me a little bit cold. I wish they'd done something wider, and I wish they'd canted it a little bit more so it's not on the lock bar. That would have been a big design help there. This knife, for whatever reason, shipped greased. Like they used a thicker grease, kind of like along the lines of what the Chris Reeve knives used. And that didn't impress me because it made the action a lot worse. And the action on this knife already needs a little bit of help. So that was a problem. It does have an interior stop pin, and I'm going to see if there's a way I can show that to you, but I don't know that there is. Well, actually here, I think you can see it in there. The stop pin rides on the inside of the blade, basically, which means that if you get any kind of lint stuck in there, it's going to interfere with the lockup of the knife. So this is a knife you're going to have to take apart and clean regularly. I did, and it wasn't very hard to do, but, you know, that's something you got to keep in mind, especially if you work in a sandy or a linty environment. That's going to be a problem for you. And the biggest bad thing about this, although I won't call it ugly, is the price. And this is a $300 pocket knife here in the US. And, you know, honestly, I don't have trouble with that because, look, I mean, this is solid titanium on two sides. It's beautifully milled on both sides, so you've got a nice texture here, a milled clip even with its faults. And it's got all the fanciness of the 3 rapid exchange thing, and the blade is M390. So it's an expensive knife, and that's not a great thing. But I can see where the value is here. They didn't cut any obvious corners in making this, and, you know, okay. So, yeah, it's pricey, but that's bad, not ugly. So, what is ugly? Let's go there. The ugly thing of this knife is that, as we say in English, this knife is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Because it's got this T.R.E. thing, it's designed to be used in one of 3 different ways. You can have the flipper part installed and use it just as a flipper. But the thing is, it's an okay flipper. Right now, this has literally just been cleaned in the last 24 hours. And so most of the time it's flipping. But when I got it, oh, there we go. When I got it, it needed a lot of work. And if you just try and light switch this flipper, try and push button it, it just doesn't work. And so it's just not a great flipper. With a little wrist, it'll always open, no problem. But, you know, this is probably about the same in terms of flipping action as your Kershaw Skyline, which is a budget flipper, or your Hinderer XM18, which, oh, don't even get me started. But either way, it's just not a great flipper. As it is, the detent is not strong enough for it to really flip out in the kind of way that you would see off of your ZT 0462 CF. 452, that is. So, you know, the flipping action leaves a lot to be desired. But okay, it can also be used as a Thumbstud knife. But the thing is, okay, we got the Thumbstud attached here. This is a very small Thumbstud. It doesn't stick out very far, and it's more along the lines of your Emerson opening disc. And it's usable, most certainly. But it was very easy for me trying to do this as a Thumbstud to do one of 2 things. First, to slip off of the Thumbstud, because there's not all that much adhesion to it. And second, to use my index finger and press in on the lock bar, which prevents you from opening this with the Thumbstud. It makes the detent just too powerful to really overcome smoothly. And so it's not a great Thumbstud knife either, because, well, the detent is a little too strong for a Thumbstud, in my personal opinion. And so you can take the thumb stud off, and in fact, I feel like the knife does become much more attractive and interesting once you do. So I'll just show you that in the meantime. And then the problem is that once you take off your thumb stud, come on now. There we go. Take off the fiddly little set screw and pop the thumb stud off. It's pretty heavily friction fit there. There we go. Then, if you take off the flipper too, this becomes a two-hand opening knife, and that's the law of the land in a lot of places. But the problem is, as a two-hand opener, there's not a whole lot of space to grab. I mean, you can do it, no problem, but compared to a knife like your Pingo, or even like your Michigan Jack, where you've got a nail nick or something like that, that's a Northwoods I was talking about there, this is just harder to use as a two-hand opening knife. So you end up with a knife that can be flipped. Okay, well, I mean, it works. That has a thumb stud that doesn't work very well, really, at all, and that, you know, is a really bad two-hand opener. And because of all of these little kind of changes and tweaks here that you can make, the knife becomes a little bit fiddly, in my opinion, meaning that, you know, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Things can come loose. You've got set screws. You need to keep your tools around to do that. And luckily, like I said, in your little box here, it has tools for everything. So you can make all of the requisite exchanges even as long as you got the box. You're good. But that leads to a knife that's a little bit more fiddly than I'd like, and that's not something I'm a huge fan of. So there's your ugly. This is a knife that can be one of three things, but isn't really great at being any of those three things relative to some of your other options. So what's the final verdict here? This knife is meant for a very, very specific person, like a traveling salesperson in Europe who needs to be able to switch the knives, or, you know, anywhere else, needs to be able to switch your knife to deal with the carry laws in any given jurisdiction on any given day. This may be godsend, and you can't stop at home to pick something else. This may be the only option you've really got, and in that way, it's very nice. It's nicely made, and it's okay at being all of those things. But if you're somebody who's looking at the T.R.E. and thinking to yourself, well, I like flippers, this is a pretty knife, maybe I'll get a T.R.E. I really don't think it's the best choice at $300 for any of these functions. And if you're just looking to get something that is a good slip joint, not slip joint, that's a good two-hand opening knife, that's a good thumb stud knife, and that's a good flipper, you can get three knives for the same price as this. I mean, you could pick up a ZTO 450, which is a great flipper, titanium frame lock. You can pick up a Spyderco Delica, which is a great thumb stud / thumb hole opening knife. And you can pick up a Spyderco Pingo, which will be legal everywhere, or a nice little traditional, for the exact same price, and probably with enough left over to have dinner, which is kind of a beautiful thing. So, I mean, that's kind of my verdict, this is the perfect knife for a very strange person. And if you're that strange person, then by all means, go for it. But $300 buys you a lot of knife or a lot of knives. And chances are anything that you buy that's not trying to do all three things is going to be better at it. So I'm not going to pick up a T.R.E., and I don't know that you need to either. But if you ever decide that you're going to become a traveling salesman in Europe who needs to carry a knife, then by God does Lionsteel have you covered. I hope this has been helpful, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.